Hi, I'm Bart Hanson. I'm the owner and lead instructor for CrushLivePoker.com. The following hand comes from our call-in show that we record live at 2 p.m. Eastern Time every Monday. If you enjoy this video, hit that like button, and if you want to submit to be on the show, take a look at the information in the description.
All right. Over Christmas was playing at MGM National Harbor and had an interesting hand. I saw it. We have two red aces in the big blind. We're playing 1-3 with the effective stack of $400.
All right, so 1-3, 400 effective, MGM National Harbor. Okay.
Nine-handed.
Yep.
Under the gun limps, very limp happy table, pretty standard low limit live table. Under the gun limps, hijack limps, button limps, small blind folds, and it's on me in the big blind with two aces. And I'm always a little confused about these spots in terms of sizing. Like, how much can you blast it and get these guys to call in these 1-3 games in your experience?
Well, how much is the standard open in this game? What were people making, like, when someone was first in the pot, what was the usual open range without limpers?
Generally, it was in the neighborhood of 8 to 12, give or take, 3 to 4 big blinds.
Really? So people weren't making it like 15 or 20 or anything crazy like that?
Not too frequently, no. I was seeing smaller opens than normal.
Okay. I mean, so you're out of
yeah.
So you're out of position, and you know it's a 1-3 game. And so that means that people are going to be pretty call happy anyways. I mean, the rule of thumb that I've said like in other times is, take your standard open and then add the limps, meaning that, like, let's say you were in position, and 1, 2, 3 people limped. If you were sort of standard opening to 12, then, I'd add to 15 for 1, 18, 21, maybe I'd make it 21 over 3 limps. You're out of position here too. So, a case could be made for making it a little bit on the larger side. But for me personally, there's something to be said at the low level. See, I look at it the opposite of a lot of people, especially as they're transitioning to no limit. They get scared. They're like, oh, I don't want to play aces or kings like 4 or 5 handed. Like, I need to like make it like 35 and thin the field and get it heads up, where I'm like, no, I want everyone to call. I mean, not literally everyone, but ideally I would like to actually have all 3 players call. And what I'm saying is the maximum amount that I would raise it, because I know that I'm getting maximum value. Where my mistake would come in is that if I sized it too small, where they would call more. So I'm trying to find that sweet spot of the maximum amount that they're going to call, because at the low stakes, what people don't understand is that you get extra value from reverse implied odds of your opponents, meaning that if you keep them in the pot, if you don't raise them off of a hand like Queen 10 offsuit or Queen Jack offsuit, if they hit top pair, you'll stack them. So if you raised it like to an amount that got that hand to fold, that's very troublesome. You've lost a lot of value. Yeah, you'll get some bad beats and things like that, but I would probably make it 20 for all those reasons. What did you do?
I made it 20 for those exact reasons.
Okay.
I too realize that you can't win money if they fold.
Right.
Clearly, unless you're bluffing. But when you have exactly 2 aces, you want people to call you, and obviously you have to play poker sometimes.
Right. So what happened? How many people called?
So the under the gun called and the hijack called. The button chose to fold.
So, UTG calls, and the guy in the middle calls?
And hijack calls.
Oh,
button folds.
All right, so UTG calls, hijack calls. Okay. So the pot is $60, right? $63.
Yeah, 64, yeah.
64. Okay. All right, let's go to the flop.
All right, we have a flop of king of spades, 10 of spades, deuce of diamonds.
King of spades, 10 of spades, deuce of diamonds. Okay.
Which is a pretty good flop. I mean, it's obviously on the wet side, there's plenty of equity these guys are going to have probably in their limp calling ranges. And there's not a ton that I'm worried about being beat by at this moment, aside from maybe a set of deuces and a random king 10. They're going to have a lot of one pair and pair plus sort of, or not pair plus draw, but like one pair hands or draw hands. There's not a lot of pair plus draws here.
Well, at the same time, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I wouldn't necessarily say that this is a great flop, because I think even though you might have the best hand now, there probably are a fair amount of hands that are going to have equity against you,
Right.
versus as opposed to like if the board was like king six deuce, right? You know what
Right.
I mean? Something
Exactly.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
So with the texture of the board, I thought betting on the larger side. If the king six deuce rainbow had come out, we would have bet something like 20 or 25, I think. But on the king 10 deuce two tone, I'm gonna bet more like two-thirds pot,
Yeah,
in my
that's fine.
opinion.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
So I
Yeah,
bet 40,
yeah.
and the only the hijack calls 40.
All right. So hero bets 40, fold. Hijack was closing the action, calls, right?
Correct. Correct.
So pot now is like 144, and you guys have like 300 and like $340 left.
340.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. 340
Yeah.
back. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Okay. So we catch a spicy turn card. The ace of spades comes on the turn.
Ace of
And I
spades.
honestly am not. I'm not certain how to deal with the ace of spades. I mean, obviously it's great to make top set, but so much comes in here, and a lot of the things that were calling me on the flop either have me beat now or are not interested in calling anymore.
Right. Right. Yeah, I would tend to agree with you.
So
I mean, because it's like you
yeah,
said, like it's
yeah,
it's probably the worst card. I mean, it's probably the most draw completing card in the deck that
yeah,
sort of puts you in a, I don't know. I wouldn't say necessarily way ahead, way behind, but like you said, like it will disinterest the cards that were like medium strength, the hands that were medium strength, like 10x or something like that, even sometimes king x, where you won't get value from those. And now the queen jack comes in, and the front door spades come in here as well. I mean, I think that this card almost has to be reflected as a check here. He probably
yeah.
shouldn't really have much. Even aces up is going to be very, very rare with you holding aces. And I mean, I guess maybe like ace 10 that's overlimped, but obviously ace king is usually going to be raised at this level. So
Exactly.
it's, yeah, it's probably be reflected with a check.
Yeah, I considered betting on the outside chance that something like king queen with the queen of spades or king jack with the jack of spades were there, but that didn't seem like enough combos, and I thought that so much else was beating me that I just didn't see how I could bet here out of position. So I did choose to check,
Uh huh.
and he bets $40, which is the typical poor sizing at the 1-3 game. I think it was poor. I mean, it seems like poor sizing. Like it seems very small. I'm not sure what he's accomplishing with it, unless he flat out turned to royal and he's just trying to milk me. Other than that,
Well,
I don't really get it.
well, I mean, I will say that, well, there aren't a whole lot of floats here. What I was going to say is that somewhat of a new school or thought with No Limit is to, and I've been talking about this a lot on my training material recently in my content, is what I call like turn variable sizing, where when you don't have the betting lead, like in this case for this guy in the field, or if you've like flat called a single raise in the field, which is sort of I guess what he does. You call on the flop, and then there are certain bet sizes that you make on the turn when check to on scary cards for bluffs, for thick value, and then for protection. And then if you're called, you vary up on the river with your sizing. You decide to polarize. This isn't really the best example of that because you wouldn't be betting a whole lot for protection here from the hijack's perspective. That would be more of like if the board came out 9-4 deuce and he held like pocket sevens and you bet and he called and the turn was like a five that completed the flush. I see a lot of people check back sevens there because they don't really know what to do. But you can bet your made hands, you can bet your floats, and you can also bet some hands for protection for this sort of in between sizing. And then you either check it back on the river with a polarized, or you bet very large. Here, it's not really the best example, but okay, I assume you call.
Yeah, yeah, easy call. I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
For the reasons we didn't bet, I didn't see raising either.
Right,
so
right,
I just
right.
called. And the river was another interesting card. It was the deuce of hearts.
So,
And now, yeah,
so what I was gonna say is that the pot now is
224.
24,
Yeah,
224, and you guys have about what 260 left in your stack. It looks like, right?
I
80.
believe
Oh,
so.
so it's 60, 80.
Oh,
No, actually 320. 320 left in your stack, right?
three, 300 even. It
All
was
right, so
340
300.
minus 40 more.
Okay, so
300
300,
even.
300
Yeah.
left in your stack. So, yeah, it's like you have over a pot size bet left. So you fill up here, right? Obviously you have the nuts.
Right.
So the question
Yeah,
I'm
pretty
sure
much.
that
Yeah.
you're saying is that like what should you do here, right? Should you check? Should you
Yep.
bet? I mean, listen, like, textbook sort of theoretical poker is this would be a check to basically check, you should be check raising all in. Sometimes what will happen though is you run into scenarios where players at this level at 1-3, they won't even bet a flush here at the end because they're scared that you filled up. So many of these guys go to showdown that even when you have over a pot size bet left, getting tricky with it can sometimes bite you in the ass. Like if you check here and the guy bets like, 75 and you check raise all in, players are pretty incapable of folding at this level. So say you get you get all the 300 in value, right? But let's say that you come out and you bet 200 and you get called 100% of the time. Whereas when you go for a check raise, he checks back like 30 or 40% of the time and you get zero. Coming out and actually betting might actually be a better play, even though theoretically on paper it looks like it's what are you doing? It doesn't make sense. I'm saying that this is a very level specific play where I tend to come out and bet my hands on the river because it's a counter to how often players go to showdown with hands that they should be value betting. And the reason why they go to showdown, as I've talked about this multiple times, is they're incapable of bet folding. Well, they don't think of it that way. They just don't want to open the betting back up. If they bet and they get raised, then what? Is basically what their answer is. I've heard that answer. I've heard that specific quote. Well, I didn't bet because what happens if I got raised? They wouldn't know what to do. So they check it back. So I could really, really see coming out and betting, in a higher stakes game. Yeah, you're certainly supposed to check. What did you do?
I have been studying more on the GTO side than the exploitative side, and I checked because I believed that was the most balanced play, and I should have taken the exploit because he checked behind and showed me Queen Jack offsuit.
Oh, hero checks and villain shows Queen Jack offsuit. What's interesting here is that obviously that doesn't surprise me. If you were to actually put this hand into somewhat, it's very hard to do because of the limp pot, but I'm trying to, if you could somehow shortcut a solver to the end, I bet Queen Jack in position is not bet all the time in position. Let's say it was a 3-bet configuration because, usually solutions don't really look at limpers, but
Right.
a more tight pre-flop configuration where maybe you 3-bet, from out of position and he called, right? And same thing, you bet the flop and he called, turn, you check called, and then the river paired the board. I bet Queen Jack is not bet all the time in position. I bet it has something to do with certain suits in their hand because you're going to have aces and kings, right? And sometimes
in a
tens.
pot, yeah.
Yeah. So, even though this doesn't shock me, you wouldn't be surprised that a guy might roll over 9-4 spades here too and check it back. You know what I'm saying?
Also
So Queen
true.
Jack is also, it's one of these things. But thank you very much for the call. I appreciate it. If you like what you've seen here, please hit the subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this call-in hand, hit the like button down below. To check out crushlivepoker.com, click on the link in the description. Use the code YTA300 to get the first 30 days for free.